So what are the backrooms? When you no-clip through reality, or essentially fall through the floor, you may end up in the backrooms. The backrooms is a place that doesn't exist in this reality. It consists of multiple different levels that each have their own entities and quirks. When you fall into the backrooms, you start at level 0. Basically just a tutorial, get you accustomed to things. For example, the quirks of level 0 is an ugly yellow wallpaper and moist carpeted floors. But the backrooms work completely separate from our world. With that being said, all the hallways may loop back on themselves, change within themselves, or be never ending. If you want any level in specific, just comment it down below.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Best of 2020, 2021, and 2022. This video shows a man playing Dance Dance Revolution being unknowingly recorded by some people making fun of him. The man, Adam Lanza, 6 months later would shoot his mother in the head while she was asleep and drive to Sandy Hook Elementary School, where he would murder 6 adults and 20 children between the ages of 6 and 7. In the 1960s, scientists attempted to teach dolphins English. However, the experiments were cut short when one of the scientists, Margaret Lovatt, was caught having sex with a dolphin named Peter. She even claimed that Peter initiated it, and after she left, he killed himself. In the 18th century, you could actually bring your cat or dog to the London Zoo and pay your admission by feeding it to the lions. This photo shows 8-month-old Xiao Bao, who is lucky to be alive because his mother stabbed him 80 times after he bit her while she was breastfeeding him. A 46-year-old man found and attacked a 13-year-old boy because he was killing him too many times in a game of Call of Duty. There have been countless cases of people's intestines being sucked out by vacuum toilets on airplanes. So if you want to keep your rectum, be sure to stand up before you flush. A man once donated his recently deceased mother's body for scientific research. Later, he discovered the research facility sold it to the US Army for $5 grand, strapped it to a chair, and blew it up with explosives. There are some Native Americans that sided with the Confederates during the Civil War, and some of them even owned slaves. On New Year's Day, this guy was drunk driving with his friends when they ended up killing 2 people. He then posted this video destroying the memorials of the people they killed and posted it to Twitter. All because his murderer friends were thrown into jail. Yuroko Onaja was in the middle of having sex with his 6th wife when his other wives caught him and became jealous. They forced him to do it with each of them, and he stopped breathing before he could get to the 5th wife. You know that moment when you're about to fall asleep and suddenly you flinch because you feel like you're falling? This is actually known as a hypnic jerk, and it alerts your body that you're dying, or at least thinks that it's dying. This is former NBA player Mark Jackson's basketball card. In the background are the Menendez brothers. They're sitting courtside shortly after killing their parents and just before getting arrested. Right now, at this very moment, there are tiny little bugs munching on your skin. More people have tapeworms than have dogs, which I guess makes them the most popular pet. Oh yeah, and this is what they look like up close. You know how every few pistachios there's always one that tastes a little bit different? Well, it's because there's a dead navel orange worm inside of it. Every single day, someone takes the largest shit in the world and they have no idea that it was them. If you're ever eating crickets, make sure to chew them thoroughly and do not swallow them alive. They have tiny spines on their legs which can cling to your throat and choke you to death. And the most blood-curdling fact of all, this series is over. I'm just kidding, guys. I thought this would be a great chance to tell you guys that I dropped a clothing line called Look Behind You. I've been wearing the clothes all throughout the video. If you're into spooky, creepy, horror type stuff, this brand's definitely for you. Links in my bio if you want to check it out, and don't forget, look behind you.
Crazy facts that will blow your mind. If you remember your dream when you wake up, then it wasn't a dream, it was a message.
I don't want to be alone.
On this program, Mickey and I will introduce you to some of Disneyland's newest and most exciting attractions, the fabulous Pirates of the Caribbean.
Almost everyone has heard of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney World.
But did you know that it was actually built before the movies came out? The ride's construction began in 1967 and was being overseen by Walt Disney himself. But the ride's creation was riddled in sinister details. While building the original set, the crew was struggling to create skeletons that looked real enough, so they decided to use actual human remains. And it's rumored that the human bones used are still on the ride today. This ride would also be one of the last projects Walt Disney would ever oversee, because he would die before it was finished, leaving some of the crew to believe the ride was cursed. Be sure to follow for more of the dark side of TikTok.
Serious, what's a scary science fact that the public knows nothing about? During World War II, the Japanese would continuously experiment on the people they captured, like open a pregnant woman's stomach and see the baby, infect her with syphilis and see the effects, etc. While the Nazis also did commit genocide and all that, Japan was never confronted about those war crimes. Limit eruptions. There are pockets of CO2 trapped under lakes all around the world that can be released at any time, creating an invisible tidal wave that kills everything in its path. Since it's heavier than air, will just suddenly start choking and die. Anthrax spores can remain viable for decades in the soil or animal products such as dried or processed hides and wool. The plaque is still out there. The bubonic plaque is endemic in many parts of the world, but cases are very rare because we've got it pretty well handled. If there's a general breakdown in society like a nuclear war, supervolcano eruption or asteroid impact, it's out there waiting to come back. Scientists don't know exactly how acetaminophen works to relieve pain and reduce fever. They have an idea but nothing for sure, but yet it's the most commonly used pain reliever in the world. Microplastics revealed in the placentas of unborn babies. DuPont knowingly infected over 90% of the American population with PFOAs, a harmful plastic that has a half-life of 20 years. Lawsuit is still ongoing but no one seems to be bothered.
Weird and scary facts you probably didn't know, part 2. If you are murdered, there is a 40% chance your murder will get away with it. If the sun exploded right now, we wouldn't know about it for about 8 minutes. 30% of children report hearing voices. There is over 200 bodies on top of Mount Everest. Horned toads can squirt blood out of their eyes. Dogs like squeaky toys because they mimic the screams of their prey. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. It takes the death of 27,000 trees daily to make toilet paper for humans. A human head remains conscious for around 20 seconds after being decapitated. Rats and mice can spread at least 35 different diseases to humans. A body decomposes 4 times faster in water than on land. Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street is based on a true story. Your bed can have up to 10 million dust mites. The Island of the Dolls is one of the most haunted places in the world. Nailed into the island's trees are little dolls that are said to be housed by the spirit of a little girl. ancient Romans believed that drinking blood would let them absorb power.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your life. In toddlers, their adult teeth are right underneath their eyes. Butterflies have been known to drink blood. Your belly button is just your old mouth. Only 1 in every 1,000 sea turtles born make it to adulthood. In 2014, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention found a smallpox sample they'd lost without even realizing it. Hit the plus sign to learn more facts.
What are some very creepy facts? Ducks become cannibals due to boredom. Of all fucking reasons. They can only be stopped by cutting off their mouths. It was once discovered that a fir tree was growing inside a human body. Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctors suspecting something wrong with his lungs. The doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but turns out he had inhaled a fir tree seed which had sprouted and had begun growing in his lungs. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. There was a speech made for Apollo 11 if they were to die on the moon. Side fact, if it were to happen, people would look up at the moon knowing that crew died there, and their bodies would rest there till the end of time. Not forgetting that the ocean is somewhat like this, many people died there too, at the very depths of the sea. It's quite common after you die to burp a lot as you have more gas build up. Dead bodies can also sit up on their own sometimes. Most people smell different when they're awake. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approx minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive, all whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. A single tiger has killed over 436 people in India. Human brains when they dry out smell like cat piss, that stinky ammonia smell. Worked in an ER for 17 years in CT. Had a gunshot to the head come in and a chunk fell onto my shoe and didn't notice. While driving home was like, WTF, did my cat piss in the car or something? Went to take my shoes off and there was. Elmer McCurdy was a failed Old West outlaw. His preserved body was put on display in a traveling carnival and years later he was eventually assumed to be a mannequin until he was used on set for the TV show The $6 Million Man. His arm accidentally fell off during the shoot, revealing bone and muscle and that he was a corpse, not a mannequin. Sometimes an Amber Alert causes kidnappers to panic and kill the kid immediately.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer too. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
I don't want to be alone.
What is your favorite very creepy fact? A human corpse decomposes 4 times faster in water than in the ground and 8 times faster in open air than in the ground. The human brain continues to give off electrical signals for 20 to 40 seconds after death. It takes approximately 359 humans to have enough iron to forge a sword from their blood. The armpit is where all your important nerves in your arm, so if you stab it you can't really use your arm. You have a bunch of microscopic parasites called Demodex on your eyelashes and in the pores on your face. They come out at night to lay eggs on and eat the oils on your face. When a person is electrocuted in the electric chair they feel everything. They are fully aware of their bodies being fried as it happens in real time. One inmate who survived the first round of electrocution said it tasted like cold peanut butter. There is a rare genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia where over the course of months you literally cannot go or be put to sleep no matter what you take or what you do. The symptoms get progressively worse until finally you stay awake watching yourself go insane until you die from exhaustion. The bodies of the sailors who died on the Edmund Fitzgerald are still down there almost perfectly preserved due due to the water at that depth being just barely above freezing. Divers who have explored the wreckage have seen their bodies frozen in place to parts of the ship and have come back reporting that they feel as if they were being followed during their time underwater. Photos were taken, but per the request of the crew's family, they have never been released to the public.
Gruesome torture methods that you'll be glad you weren't around for. Part 1. The brazen bull execution was a method used in ancient Greece where a flame at the bottom roasted you to death, and the head of the bull was designed in such a way that your screams would be filtered and contorted into the sounds of a real bull. On pirate ships, workers who refused to follow orders would be hung by their nails. Another method used by pirates was called keel hauling, in which the men were dragged under the ship until they died. And if this wasn't bad enough, the ship's hull was covered in barnacles so the man would be cut up as he drowned. Scaphism was an ancient Persian torture technique where criminals were stripped naked, tied to a boat, and then force-fed honey and milk until they got diarrhea, were covered in more honey, and set adrift in the ocean. This would then attract insects that would slowly but surely eat the men to death.
What is your favorite very creepy fact? A human corpse decomposes 4 times faster in water than in the ground and 8 times faster in open air than in the ground. The human brain continues to give off electrical signals for 20 to 40 seconds after death. It takes approximately 359 humans to have enough iron to forge a sword from their blood. The armpit is where all your important nerves in your arm, so if you stab it you can't really use your arm. You have a bunch of microscopic parasites called Demodex on your eyelashes and in the pores on your face. They come out at night to lay eggs on and eat the oils on your face. When a person is electrocuted in the electric chair, they feel everything. They are fully aware of their bodies being fried as it happens in real time. One inmate who survived the first round of electrocution said it tasted like cold peanut butter. There is a rare genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia where over the course of months you literally cannot go or be put to sleep no matter what you take or what you do. The symptoms get progressively worse until finally you stay awake watching yourself go insane until you die from exhaustion. The bodies of the sailors who died on the Edmund Fitzgerald are still down there, almost perfectly preserved due to the water at that depth being just barely above freezing. Divers who have explored the wreckage have seen their bodies frozen in place to parts of the ship and have come back reporting that they feel as if they were being followed during their time underwater. Photos were taken, but per the request of the crew's family they have never been released to the public.
Haunting facts about serial killers that you'll want to forget. Part 1. After raping his blindfolded victims, the Golden State Killer would be super quiet and pretend like he was gone, and right when the victims would try to untie themselves or go for their phone, he would scare the hell out of them. Jeffrey Dahmer attempted to make sex zombies out of his victims by drilling holes into their head while they were still alive and pouring acid into the holes. American serial killer Albert Fish once cooked and ate a little girl and sent a letter to her parents describing how she tasted. Colombian serial killer Pedro Alonso Lopez raped and murdered over 300 girls. He was in prison for 18 years when he was moved to a psychiatric hospital where they declared him to be sane and he was set free, even though he stated that he planned on killing again. He was released in 1998 and no one knows where he is or what he's doing.
Cursed Games You Should Never Play Part 6. The Sadman Game. A game to play during sleepovers. Begin at any time and go all together into a dark and quiet room. One of you should be the sleeper and another one should be the storyteller. The rest will be watching. The sleeper should lie down on their back and their head on a pillow. The storyteller should sit next to the sleeper. Now the sleeper should close their eyes and the storyteller will begin the story. You can tell any story you want, but it must include the sleeper getting sliced open, filled with sand, and closed back up again. Run a finger across the sleeper's forehead and limbs as if you're slicing them. When you reach the part about sand, press your hands against their limbs and forehead up and down. In the last part, pinch your fingers gently on the same spots as if you're sewing them. Once the story is finished, the sleeper should stand up, if they can of course. They should feel heavier, as if they are full of sand. But don't worry, they will go back to normal again. But even though there are no bad guys or spirits in this game, it doesn't mean it's not dangerous. Your own mind can be more dangerous than any monster.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 4. The reason your dog likes squeaky toys so much is because the squeak reminds them of small animals dying. Every day, one person takes the biggest shit in the world and they have no idea it was them. The entire universe outside of our galaxy could have disappeared over 20,000 years ago. This is because our view of the universe is what it looked like thousands to billions of years ago. Some tumors can contain pockets of hair and teeth and grow complex organs such as eyes, feet, and hands. There are at least 92 nuclear weapons in the world that are known to be missing. Brain aneurysms can happen whenever, wherever. Polar bears are thought to be some of the only animals that actively hunt humans. You can think about wanting to move your hand and it won't move, but when you want to move your hand, it moves. Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew, Part 18. A man from Queens once spent 5 months in jail completely unaware that his bail was just $2. Since spiders molt, when you see what you might think is a dead spider, it could just be that the spider left behind its exoskeleton and is now bigger than before. Dr. Seuss cheated on his wife while she had cancer and then she proceeded to commit suicide. Almost everyone on Earth is walking around with a bunch of poop inside of them. Scientists accidentally killed the world's oldest living animal, which was a clam that lived to be 507 years old. Statistically speaking, at least one person who comments on this video will not be alive tomorrow. The real reason you shouldn't eat raw cookie dough isn't because of getting sick from eating raw eggs. It's because you shouldn't eat raw flour, which contains fecal matter from all the birds flying over the field and pooping on the wheat.
Tiptoe through the window, by the window, that's where I'll be.
In July 1955, Pan Am Flight 914 left New York City Airport en route to Miami. However, the flight never made it to sunny Florida. Without sending out a distress signal or leaving behind even the smallest piece of wreckage, the plane and its 57 passengers seemingly vanished into thin air. As the years passed without any sign of the missing plane, most people assumed the mystery would never be solved. But then, 37 years later, the impossible happened. Grab your popcorn and stay tuned to find out exactly what that impossible occurrence was, alongside a whole host of other eerie, mysterious voyages. One morning in 1992, at an airport in Caracas, Venezuela, air traffic controllers were going about their business when they noticed something very strange. Even though their radars showed an empty sky, they could clearly see a plane hurtling in the direction of the runway. As it got nearer, they noticed that this plane was old-fashioned and propeller-driven, a model that hadn't been used in years. Air traffic controller Juan de la Corte immediately made radio contact with the pilot and asked him to identify the mystery plane. The pilot replied that this was Flight 914, ready to touch down in Miami. When Juan informed him this was an airport in Venezuela, the pilot was horrified. He'd somehow traveled 1,200 miles away from his destination, and things were about to get even weirder. When the plane landed, witnesses could see passengers pressed up against the windows, wearing strangely old-fashioned clothing and staring in confusion at the modern aircrafts on the tarmac. After a long silence, Juan's radio crackled. In a hoarse voice, the pilot of the mystery plane asked him to confirm the date. Juan told him it was May 21st, 1992. As he spoke, he could hear the pilot breathing fast, clearly distressed. Moments later, the pilot flung open the cockpit window and began frantically waving away the ground crew, screaming that he needed to leave. As he waved his arms, something fluttered down from the clipboard he clutched in one hand. But before anyone could react, the plane was in motion. The aircraft crew watched in shock as, mere minutes after it had happened, the mystery aircraft sped off down the runway before climbing away into the clouds. Juan ran down to the tarmac and picked up the document that had fallen from the pilot's clipboard. To his shock, he saw that it was a calendar dating from 1955. In the aftermath, aviation officers were able to surmise that this unexpected runway visitor was indeed the mysterious Flight 914 that had disappeared back in the 50s. But even after a thorough investigation, they couldn't make
The owner of this funeral home left suddenly one day in 2009 and never returned. Three weeks before, the owner had told her staff that there was something sinister within these walls and that they had to leave. She told them she had been working late and she saw the dead literally coming back to life before her very eyes. She never returned back to work or her home and was never seen again. The funeral home now sits, decaying and forgotten in time.
Down by the bay, down by the bay, where the watermelon rot, where the watermelon rot. If you go home, just don't get caught, just don't get caught. But if you do.
These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. In ancient Rome, soldiers used to drink fresh warm blood to cure epilepsy. There are antidepressants that eliminate someone's ability to feel love and compassion. The Exorcist movie resulted in many of its cast dying, including 2 actors whose characters died in the movie. In 2017, an asteroid named AG-13 passed by our home planet with less than the distance of the moon. Scientists saw it coming only 2 days before it could have hit Earth. One of the most haunted dolls is Robert. It belonged to a child named Eugene in 1904. The 2 most dangerous books are called Shams al-Ma'arif and Al-Ghazali. They carry rituals for summoning demons. In ancient England, people used tops of hollowed human skulls to drink and eat. At Harvard University, there's a book bound in human skin, like for part 6.
Terrifying facts about space, Part 1. There is one supermassive black hole that is 1 million times more massive than the Sun. It's wandering through space at about 3 million miles per hour. Most black holes remain attached to their galaxy, but this one is a rogue black hole whose galaxy got destroyed after colliding with another bigger galaxy. And it's 2 billion light years away from us. And if it does come our way, we won't even know because everything around us will immediately